The UK supermarket sector is in a state of flux at present. The Competition Commission appears reluctant to allow the big players to merge, but is allowing other deals such as M&S and Ocado on the periphery of the sector, also Morrisons and Amazon. Is the sector, though, as it is, ripe for a turnaround, or is it a failed model that needs severely adjusting? Tom Brereton joins us now from Global Data. Tom, it's good to talk to you. Thanks for your time.
That's okay.
First of all, give us an overview of the sector. I mean, I gave a few examples there as to how things are beginning to change. What is your thought on the supermarket sector as it is in the UK?
Sure, I think the supermarket sector has been struggling a lot. They've got a lot of internal battles between the players, but externally, you've got the pressures of food service and deliveries, Just Eat, Uber Eats, Deliveroo, all causing problems for the traditional supermarkets. So it is in a bit of a pickle at the moment. However, within the wider context of retail, it's doing quite well because it's an essential product, so people aren't able to cut back completely on that. They are, however, able to trade down, hence the rise of the discounters.
On that respect, in the discounters part of the business at the moment, Aldi and Lidl especially, I think you're probably referring to.
Yes.
Is that the future? Is the fact that we are, as a consumer now, desperate to see these supermarkets drive down prices to the point at which it becomes acceptable to buy them? Or is the sector going to go in a different direction with technology expanding into online, because Aldi and Lidl don't do online? How do you see the disruptors behaving in the future against the supermarket drive to go with more technology?
Sure. So I think what you're touching on is a wider aspect of this push for convenience from shoppers. Previously, we had big out-of-town models, and then high street supermarkets. High street supermarkets were able to charge more because you had to go further to go out of town. But what we're seeing is the way tech's evolving, and the amount of information we have just on our phones and the ability we can have to order products and things. We haven't disregarded completely, but that out of town model, people aren't willing to drive that far to buy groceries. So the whole thing shifted to convenience and online. But the attitude of pricing has shifted as well. So previously they were saying, customers saying, I'll go to my convenience store and I'll pay more so I don't have to go out of town. But now I'll go online and I'm not willing to pay more for convenience. So Aldi and Lidl are both looking for that. They don't like to classify themselves as convenience stores, but their networks are very large. They're in quite urban centres. Aldi are trying a new thing called Aldi Local, which is looking to expand across London. So essentially, if you're not buying online, you're saying, I'm willing to go out, but I'm hoping to get a better deal on price for that. So that is a real threat to the traditional supermarkets.
How about brand loyalty? Does that come into it anymore? I mean, everybody says the weekend, 10, 15 years ago, I'm just going to go to Tesco's, my normal Saturday shop. I go there every weekend. Is that out the window?
No, it's certainly not. It's actually a very big corner that the traditional supermarkets are trying to fight in. This year we've had Tesco's birthday and Sainsbury's birthday, and what they've done with those is they've run, particularly Sainsbury's, have run a lot of adverts saying, it's about that journey of that brand and that family, and everyone's putting their part in, and they are trying to make supermarkets more of a story that consumers can associate with. We've seen that in other areas, things like clothing. People can be very brand loyal, but that's not quite the same with food at the moment. But some of the traditional supermarkets that are struggling in these other areas have that longevity, have that history. So they're trying to fight that corner.
Just want to go back to the point you made about out of town against high street. What's the footfall like on out of town? Is it starting to diminish? I mean, is there a reason now for these big stores to continue to find greenfield or brownfield spaces out of town to build stores, or is that trend now reverting back to the high street?
I think it's, I know, it's one of those things that people often say that it's sort of collapsing. That's not true. People are still going to out of town stores, but I don't think those supermarkets are looking to expand into that space anymore. They've got quite big portfolios. In fact, both Tesco's and Sainsbury's are restructuring their portfolio to focus on convenience stores because people aren't so willing to travel out of town.
Yeah.
And you have to provide a real, so on that sense, you have to provide a real reason for people to go out of town. What we've seen, Sainsbury's have a new store format in just outside Birmingham in Selly Oak, where it's got a lot of concessions. It's got like a canteen area. It's sort of a
bit more an event to go
Yes,
out there.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can
yeah,
have lunch
exactly,
out there
yeah.
and so forth. Yeah. What about this idea about consolidation? I spoke at the top about the big deal this year that the Competition Commission wouldn't allow, that between Sainsbury's and Asda. Is that signals to the sector that the Competition Commission won't allow any, or was that specific to that? I mean, could we see other deals, do you think, or do you think as the Competition Commission has just had enough of it?
I think there's definitely scope for other deals. I think that Sainsbury's and Asda were very unlucky to not get that through. It definitely wasn't an absolute no. I think it was very on the line. And there was a lot of backlash from Sainsbury's and Asda accusing CMA calculations, etc. So I think there is definitely scope. I think there's more scope for vertical integration, as we saw with Tesco Booker, and Morrison's are quite well vertically integrated as well. So I definitely think there's more scope for that from the players that haven't been involved in that. But in terms of horizontal integration, it's quite hard to get it past the CMA because they are worried about that consolidation in the market.
What about integration out into other areas? I'm thinking here about the way that Marks and Spencer's crafted this deal with Ocado quite neatly. I think there's a 50-50 split in this joint venture they've got, isn't there? Which is quite a neat way of doing it. First of all, does that help M&S? I'm still at sea as to what M&S's strategy is at the moment, if I'm totally honest with you. But does this do anything for M&S in your view?
Yes, I think it does, in the sense that they've made their decision quite strongly to jump into online supermarket. They didn't really have an online presence as such to speak of before, and they've really gone, this is a growing area. We need to have a slice of this cake. So they've stumped up a lot of cash. It's a lot of money, and they've struggled to raise that money through rights. So it's interesting for M&S. I think what we're seeing, Ocado is one of those companies that considers themselves a tech company that happens to do food.
Yeah.
Do you know the way Amazon considers itself a tech company that happens to do retail?
But they do it very well, which I guess is what M&S is buying into.
Of course, yes, yeah. So Ocado own over 10% of the online market, of the online grocery share, and people have predicted that could go up to somewhere around 30%, in the long term. So it's a good deal for M&S in the sense of reaching out to customers and getting themselves that outlet, which would probably be very costly for them to build themselves. However, I think it was just a question of price, really, for that deal for them.
Is this the last roll of the dice for M&S? Because, I mean, what is it? I mean, it started off as clothing, which it did very well, and then, of course, started to expand to other areas. Is it fast food? Is it lunchtime food to take away? Is it an amalgam of all these things? Difficult to pin M&S down now.
Yeah, it is very difficult to pin them to pigeonhole M&S. I think that their sort of GM and clothing side and their home side has been struggling for quite a while. And they've seen food as their sort of source of potential growth. We've also had from Steve Rose, the CEO, saying how they're aiming to bring more family shoppers in, using a more value proposition, but that's slightly obscuring what M&S probably most consumers consider. So it is difficult to see exactly what their clear message is. I think this was a clear intention, though, that we need to go into online, and they've. But
online still doesn't pay, does it? I mean, my understanding is that this is an interesting thing about Aldi and Lidl. They're not online. Tesco's can't make it pay. Asda doesn't make it pay. Sainsbury's, I believe, doesn't make it pay. The online part of the business.
Yes, certainly. Online grocery shopping is one of those things that if all the supermarkets could roll back the clock 30 years, they probably will agree to themselves.
Yeah.
We just won't do it because but as soon as one does, the others have to kind of get in line and follow.
So what do you make of the Morrison's Amazon deal? The way I view it is that Amazon's put its lot in with one of the smaller players in the supermarket sector, and Morrison's presumably has set this deal up so it's almost an exclusive deal. I can't see Morrison's allowing Amazon then to replicate the deal with Tesco and Asda and Sainsbury, because they're then opening up internal competition. So how is this deal structured, and what's Amazon want out of this? Sure.
So I mean, you've mentioned that Amazon have put their lot in with the smallest of the players. The question I would say is, would Tesco or Asda or Sainsbury's want to have this deal with Amazon? Amazon is a fickle friend in the sense that it can help you a lot, but if it wants to, it can turn around and really take control of your market before you've realised what's happened. I think personally, I think Amazon are waiting for Brexit to be decided a bit more. Like, there's no point for them rushing into a market which is shrouded by uncertainty when they're a global player and they've got other areas they can focus on. From Morrison's point of view, Morrison's are very quickly becoming almost a supermarket broker of deals, in the sense that they've got a bit, they're quite vertically integrated. They've got this deal, and they supply a lot of convenience stores, so they're sort of becoming the centre of a web, which is very clever for them. And that kind of makes sense why they've moved in.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about Dave Potts before in other contexts, and he's done a very good job at Morrison's. You mentioned Brexit. Got to talk about that, how it affects the sector, and is it doing anything to stop the sector from moving any further forward? Because we hear a lot about problems with other areas of the British economy where they have deals with overseas partners and so forth. Brexit is becoming a big issue. Within the supermarket business, is it a headwind?
Yes, I would say so. I'd say it breaks down sort of into two camps. I'd say the first is the fear of investment from outside the UK because of that uncertainty. And I would say that with Amazon, and I would say that with, Amazon for food specifically, but and I would say that with Walmart trying to get rid of Asda. They don't really speak about Asda a lot when they make their presentations. I know it's a small amount of their revenue, but it's basically Asda's a headache that we'd like to get rid of. We don't want to completely step out of, but it's something that we'd rather let someone else deal with while we fight Amazon in the US. So there's that side of Brexit. The other side is the supply side and the potential issues for shortages and things, which is it's fundamental to that sector. The movement of the deadline to October now, end of October, is really tough for supermarkets because they're coming out of Halloween, they're going into Christmas. Even without a Brexit, usually their storage is at capacity, so it puts them in a real difficult position that date specifically. And outside of that, it's just a case of how are they going to make these deals? How much are they going to pass any rising costs onto customers? And they'll be watching who becomes the next Prime Minister very carefully.
Just quickly round all this up for us in a few sentences, if you can. Where is there value here? Where do you see the best placed supermarket operating as we move through these headwinds that we've got? Where are the best operators?
Who are the best? In my opinion, I think Tesco's is an excellent operator. Tesco's have over the past 4 years have really, under how I like to describe wartime General Dave Lewis comes in and he says, I'm going to raise the operating margin because that's how business works, and I'll get to this level, which he's done exceptionally well. It's for Tesco's. I think it's a case about now looking forward and trying to become a leader rather than maybe imitating some of their rivals. They've stolen a bit from Aldi and Lidl ideas, but they need to be looking at Ocado and going, what are they doing? Why aren't we doing that? Yeah.
All right, look, thanks indeed for joining us, Tom. It's been good to talk to you about the supermarket sector, where things are in this time of change. That was Tom Brereton joining us from Global Data.